Hi everyone, we're here today with Lynne Kennedy. She's the founder of Business Women Connections. Hi Lynne, thanks for making the time.
Thank you for the invitation. Delighted to be here this morning or this
No,
afternoon.
I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to having a chat and really intrigued on one hand about what you do and how you got into it. But before we get into all of that, tell tell me what Businesswoman Connections offers as a business that you've set up. What is Businesswoman Connections and what do you offer to maybe a range of people?
Business Women Connections is a platform to support women in business, all different levels, from startups to individual memberships to corporates. It's a safe, secure community that's grown at a local level.
Great. All right. And when did you start this business? And I guess a follow-up question to that is what motivated you to start this business?
I've been thinking about starting the franchise for quite a long time because the sister organisation is Business Women Scotland that I started about 18 years ago when I decided to go out on business on my own after leaving a job. I realised there wasn't really anything for women in business. There wasn't really a community that I could actually go to find information. In Scotland, we're very lucky because we have other organisations as well that can give you little bits of information free, but there was nothing really for women in business. There was lots for men. You can join a chamber and things, or you can, if you play golf, then you're fine. But there wasn't actually a safe, secure community supporting women in business, and that was really why I had looked at it during the first financial crisis when I set up Business Women Scotland, because I thought, where do people go? What do they do if there's two income families and they want to set up a business? And it's an opportunity for them, but you have to be able to give a good offering for them to actually want to be part of it. And through starting Business Women Scotland, a conversation with another franchisee in Scotland, I decided to set up Business Women Connections through a little pod nudge on. This is something that you could offer doing UK. So that was really why we started it. And so far, it's been great, really good, really positive.
And so let's talk about the Scotland side first, because that's obviously been going a long time. What have you noticed in terms of a change in those 18 years? Because 18 years is a long time. What improvements have you seen in terms of opportunities for women? And I guess I'm talking mainly about Scotland because your focus was mainly in Scotland during that time. Um,
Yeah, I think women have found more of a voice. I think they've become more confident in their abilities and what they have to offer. Before, it was always very much reticent about, risk. In Scotland, it's if I think especially Scotland, if you're actually becoming successful, you don't really want to shout about it. Whereas if you were based in America, it's the first thing that you would actually do is actually talk about all the things you've achieved, and they wouldn't look at it negatively. Whereas here, maybe it's a wee bit more, oh, don't get, as they say, don't get too big for your boots. But I think it's definitely women have changed their attitude to how they perceive themselves, and it's something you can't buy. Confidence is something that eventually happens when you start believing in what your abilities are and what you can actually do. And I think because obviously in the media there's a lot more female focus as well. In Scotland we had a female leader as well, and in other countries there's been female leaders. So I think it's also believing in yourself and that you can do it. And there's opportunities like our network and our community that you can meet with like-minded women in business and actually chat about these things. So I just think it's changed, definitely changed over the years. You can just see a difference of women actually having confidence to set up a business or believe that they can and actually go for funding. Funding was always the main thing that held women back. If you had a man and a woman in the same situation, the man would say, yes, definitely, I'm going to go for it. I can do this. Whereas the women are always a wee bit play safe. So I would say
yeah,
that's
and I think
the thing that's really changed.
yeah, no, Lynn, I've been involved in in franchising directly for the past 18 years, and my main area of focus over that time has been on the franchise recruitment part of the process, actually helping franchisors find the right profile of people to become franchisees, make sure that those people make the right decisions as well in terms of asking the right questions and ultimately choosing or being selected for and granted a franchise. And it's always been a problem because I've always had the data, I've always seen the data, and it's always really clear that 95% of all franchise inquiries were men. So I'm going back 18 years ago, similar to when you started, actually, a similar time frame to when you started your Scottish arm to the business. And that has slowly been getting better because it was always a problem. People were always trying to do things. How can we bring more women into this? Because there were so many franchise opportunities that actually really would suit a woman, but that you couldn't attract women to fill out forms or to show interest in the business model or anything like that. And I guess a lot of those reasons are the reasons that you're explaining here. Not that I maybe was so aware of that, because I guess as a man, you're not always so aware, especially 18 years ago. You kind of probably take things for granted a little bit as a man. But you start to see the impact of organizations like yours and the steps that are being taken. And just on the data side, I'm seeing that 95%, what used to be men in the hundreds of thousands of people that used to apply for a franchise or show interest in a franchise, that's coming now closer to kind of 80-20. And that still sounds okay. It's still way in favor of men looking at franchise opportunities and so on. But 80-20 is a big difference to 95-5, right? And so we can all, I can look at that and say, oh, it'd be great if it was 50-50. Maybe that's not realistic just because of society, and there's certain things that women have responsibilities that men can't have. So which are obvious. Um, but but if that can keep coming closer, maybe it could end up 60-40 one day. And I think that'd be great because it just gives opportunity to everyone. And ultimately, it allows franchisors to tap into what's essentially half the population, half the adult population, right? So that was one of the reasons why I was really interested to talk to you, actually, is just because I see it from my kind of side, and you're actually part of that change. And so I wanted to go on to talk to you about the fact that you'd obviously tried and tested this in Scotland and seen the impact and seen how it's helped give women confidence and put themselves out there a bit more. Um, when did you think? When was your first thought about, wow, actually, this is not only something that can be applied across the whole of the UK, but it's also a business model that can in itself become an opportunity for others. So I just wanted to talk to you about the kind of those two things, and just for people to understand a bit more what's involved in the actual business.
Initially with another franchise company in Scotland, Susie McCafferty. I don't know if you know Susie, but she came up to be one of our
Yeah.
speakers in Aberdeen, and she said to me, this must have been about 8 years ago. You should really give this as an opportunity for other women in business because this is a fantastic model to roll out. And then at the time, I suppose, just going back to what I said in the previous question, I suppose it's the confidence and how do I go about setting up a franchise, what's actually involved. And I didn't really have the time or space in my head to really do that because other things going on, and just because my whole thing was starting business in Scotland, not to have any employees. And then from there, I thought about it a bit more. And then, of course, fast forward, Business Women Scotland grows, and we have awards, and we have roadshows, and we have leadership conferences, and you realise there's a big appetite for it. and people do get something from it, and it's very encouraging when you see other people getting something from it, or coming back to you a couple of years later and saying, from that roadshow and speakers that you brought together, I've set this up and it's going really well. So when you're kind of standing at the sidelines watching other businesses come to life, it's I don't know, I find that quite exciting. So during lockdown, I thought, well, this is the opportunity now to actually start looking at a franchise model and how it looks, and how it would look for the franchisee and the different income streams and how we would operate it and how it can go forward. And then with further research, I realised that in south of the border, there's not as many opportunities as we have up here in terms of funding and business gateways that we can go to. So you've really got to be part of a chamber or a BNI or something like that to actually go forward. But that's not really dedicated to women in business. So there was really an opportunity there, I thought, for a moment of growth, just to replicate what we had up here. And how does that work as a franchise, and how do we put that together as a business model? And that's really how it all started.
And so explain a bit about the business model. So for anyone that's listening, there's kind of two elements I want to cover. Firstly, if there's anyone listening who wants to get involved in this type of business, the business that you started and built, and over many, many years. So I kind of want to understand the role they would play, whether they were in Brighton or Southampton or Newcastle or Manchester or wherever they might be based, and how they can run that business. And I guess the second part is the business is obviously aimed at women, and helping provide as you say, a place where they can forward their interests in business in a safe space, and that could be starting their own business as a woman, becoming a franchisee as a woman, or whatever is involved at that stage. And so I just wanted you to talk through those two areas, because they very, they clearly defined, and they're aimed at two different kinds of people, right?
So just to go back and recap, I was asked to join Scottish Government Women's Enterprise Framework. So I'm part of Scottish Government Enterprise, and we have quarterly meetings. We haven't had one recently, but the quarterly meetings that I attended, they had all this research, and they'd sent professors and different people to go to America and look at how other women in business organisations work, and what was the most successful model, whether it's as an individual model or having women's business centres, and people go to a business centre from all over the country. And the information that came back constantly was women work better at localised level because they build a community and they build it on trust. So there's an opportunity there straight away where you have businesswomen connections. And then if you have, say, Bristol, for example, if you're a woman, female in Bristol, you've already got a good community and a good network, it's the ideal opportunity for you to say, well, I'm going to take up a franchise for Businesswomen Connections Bristol, because your community is already there. And you're building a community at a localised level because you know that community, and you know different businesses, and you know the landscape and how it actually all works. So there was, firstly, that's why it was divided into sort of cities, and that's why it works from that point, because it's communities built on trust. And that's how females work. It's females go along to these events, whether it's leadership conferences or awards, and they find out a little bit more about the person. It's not just there to do business, because it is that kind of community trust thing. So that's why it's actually in all the different cities. So at the moment we have one in Aberdeen, we have one in Edinburgh, we have one in Glasgow, and the next one will be Manchester. So that's the kind of basis of Businesswomen Connections. But
sorry, Lynne, sorry to interrupt there. Just to, I guess, for anyone listening who's interested in your priority territories or areas in the UK where they could actually become a franchisee of yours, from your website, I can see those main areas are Manchester, Birmingham, Bristol, Leeds, and Nottingham. Is that right?
Yes, but I mean, it's open to. We work with a company with Atlas Mapping, so we work in with these different companies and looking at the territory and the boundaries. So there might be something that I've missed because that's not my territory, for example. So somebody might approach me and
Yeah.
say, I'm looking at this area for these XYZ reasons. So we tailor obviously the franchise territory. We'll look at the percentage of women in business and the populations. We start working out the stats. So if there's somebody that's actually looking at, I'd love to do this, but the territory is not actually mapped on the website, then it's something obviously we're open to conversations.
Okay, all right. No, that's clear. So you're interested in talking to anyone from anywhere in the UK.
They think
And
there's an opportunity and they know there's an opportunity. They have a good community, they've got a good network, and they obviously know their own landscape.
yeah, okay. All right. And let's go on to the second part then, which is who this model or who this business model is aimed at helping, who are women looking to get into business, not necessarily franchising or anything like that, but maybe start their own business or break away and do something different. Um, what do they what do they actually get? So talk us through what benefits they have of being part of the kind of the community that you're establishing.
Well, firstly, the franchise model's based on a membership. So it's a bit more advanced than a chamber. So each territory has their own app and they connect with their members on an app, and all the events are published there, and people then can post up their own information as well. So firstly, once they join a community, it's a membership model. We also work with Federation of Small Businesses because we get a really favourable discount with the insurances and things as well. There's quite a few income streams from taking on a franchise, from the rewards with sponsorships, obviously apart from the three-tier membership. So it's an individual membership, there's a starter membership, and there's a corporate membership. And we added in corporate membership because corporates feel left out of the women in business group, because we always seem to cater for individuals that are running businesses or startups, but there's nothing for corporates where they go. So we have 6 corporate lunches and bring in speakers and etc. So there's various income streams with the actual franchise, and it's on a monthly basis, but it's built on a sort of membership basis as well. So far, the personas that we have, the people that have taken up a franchise, have been women in their 50s that are coming out of, whether they've built up a business or whether they've got to a certain level in corporate world, they feel they've got something to give back, and they obviously have a good community and they've got good connections. So the persona that we have with the 3 franchises are women in their 50s, which is quite strange. So we're already building up a picture of who is a good franchisee. But again, if somebody was younger that wanted to come on board, that would add a different element to this as well. But the 3 that we have so far are definitely women that have been in business, whether it's been in the corporate world or they've set up their own business before and they feel they've got something to give back.
Right. Yeah. No, I think in the beginning, it starts to take shape of the kind of people that will be attracted by the model, and yes, you've got to be careful not to pigeonhole because it's true. It's an opportunity that could work for anyone
Yeah.
at
We're
any age.
introducing a futures group with each of the franchisees as well. So I've got a young girl who's 18 that runs a business. So we're looking at the next generation of female entrepreneurs. So it's not just, as you say, pigeonholing who is going to be the right persona for Businesswomen Connections. But so far, the 3 that we have, it just so happens that they've been the right fit for what we're trying to do in the different cities, because each city has their own different personalities as well. So it's the way it's worked so far. But always
And
open.
what's the and Lynn, if you were to describe kind of like a day in a life of a franchisee, what activities, I'm not saying on a day, but if you could mix all the days in a week, in a month, and summarize it as to what they need to do to build a business and grow the business, what are the main areas that they're getting involved in to do that?
Well, we asked them for a minimum of 21 hours a week. So that's what they've got to commit to a franchise. They have a connections group at the end of the month, and they also have an evening event for people that can't make morning events. But in between all of that, they're pre-planning events, whether it's the awards at the end of the year, looking at sponsorships, looking at venues, going out to meet people for memberships, and basically connecting with other like-minded women in business and also businesses that would look to be a good brand to support what we're actually doing and would like to be affiliated with the brand to actually say we're supporting women in business. So really it's, maybe one day would be spent with admin and research and the other days are scheduled to go out and plan meetings. So whether it's advanced planning for awards and advanced planning for leadership courses, and then hosting a couple of events a month that are on a regular basis. And then we've also got a mentoring match that happens, which is online as well. So there's quite a lot going on, 2 or 3 events a month, one being on Zoom with a powder and things. But it's really just them planning their year, a year planner and going, right, I need to get in 5 sponsors for my awards and I've got these categories and then judging. So I would say one day's planning and scheduling meetings, and other days are going out to meet people that would be potentially interested in supporting women in business.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good. It's good to understand a little bit more about how that works. And I wanted to ask you about you have your career, if you like, is interior design, right? I mean, that's been I guess your love and passion for a long time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask, have you, from a business sense or from a work sense or a career sense, is that something you've now put to one side to focus on this, or do you still dabble on in that, or is that just something you do at home now in your own home, or how's interior design going in the whole picture?
No interior design, because interior design for me is quite a big project. So the last big project 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a wine bar in Aberdeen. So it's been always mainly commercial projects. I've vowed never to do any domestic interiors. So my degree is more about, they classified it like an inside architect, so you could actually have drawings ready for planning and building control and work with your joiners, plumbers, so you can pass on drawings. And these kind of projects take up so much time. So if I'm always very focused on something, I think you've just got to focus on one thing and do it properly, as opposed to try and split myself into various molds and be, today I'm going to be an interior designer and tomorrow I'm going to be business women connections. I can't really switch my brain off that way, but it doesn't really matter where I go, because one franchisee told me yesterday when I was in a nice hotel, you're away in a wee tangent already because you're already looking at fixtures, fittings, and how it all works. So I suppose the design part never switches off, but I don't actually participate in taking on any jobs. Who knows, maybe in the future, but at this moment in time, the focus is to build, hopefully get a franchise in each city in the UK and all the main cities so that there's opportunities for women. That's really the focus.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about kind of your vision and where you want to be, and I suppose having franchisees in cities and locations across the UK is kind of one aspiration. But if I was to ask you a kind of a more overall vision, how do you look at it? Obviously, you're setting up your model to help women, and but when you take away kind of the detail of the layers or all of that, what's your ultimate vision for let's say the UK to start with?
I think it goes back to women having a voice and women having confidence in themselves. And whether that's in business or just coming along and walking into a room full of strangers, it's quite an intimidating place. And actually, setting up a business can be quite a lonely place. So for us, well, for me, I wish I had this information when I set up 18 years ago, because I just came out of working in magazines and then thought I'm going to set a business, and then I employed 6 or 7 people straight away. And I went for it. It was a bit gung ho, if I'm honest. But I think it's just, again, it's just women having confidence to actually believe in themselves and just do it. That's really the vision
All
of it,
right.
to peel all the layers away, because although I set up 18 years ago, I don't think I was overconfident about where I was going and what I was going to. There wasn't a big plan with it, whereas this is more a plan now that I'm actually at this stage in my career.
And Lynn, so um, when you look at business and franchising and women in business, do you see franchising in terms of a woman investing in a franchise or becoming a franchisee? Do you see that as a good hybrid, um, where you're not having to come up with an entire new business and brand it and get all the logo designs and the trademarks and protect your IP and all of that? And I mean, it's the same for men, but I want to focus on the women's side because I think it's really, really important to try and everyone's trying to attract more women into the industry. And how do you view franchising as a way to start your own business, and not obviously just with your particular business model, but just generally, whether it's a cafe or a photography studio or anything else? I mean, there's a franchise for everything these days.
Well, I always believe that the person that set the franchise up has gone through the pain of setting up a business before and made expensive mistakes. So what you're really trying to pass on to somebody else is, here's the blueprint model. If you follow this model, then you'll be fine. Plus the fact that we offer the back end office support, so you don't have to go and find a web designer or a graphic designer or somebody who's going to help you with events and working your app and various things like that, and IT and all the things that go on in the background that you don't really see. These are things where it can take a lot of time to try and find the right people, because the business is built on a team. And it's taken me a long time to find people over the years that you trust and will deliver and will happen, and you don't have any issues with them, and when you ask for something, it's done. So that's where I think a franchise really works, because it allows that person that's bought a franchise to go and work on their business, as opposed to all the ins and outs and all the intricacies behind the business to make it work for them. So for me, it's franchise is a great opportunity.
And when did I guess before you knew what franchising really was, which obviously you do know now, but before you knew that, how did you view, like, was franchising something that was even in your head 18, 20 years ago, let's say? And because I ask a lot of people that question, and it's always interesting to hear how they viewed franchising before they knew the opportunities it really offered.
18 years ago, when we had the interiors magazine, I thought it'd be an opportunity to have something similar down south, but I didn't really know. I hadn't actually put franchising with my idea. I hadn't actually worked it all out that would have been the best opportunity to do it that way, because I don't think even 18 years ago for me that I really looked at franchising as an opportunity. Obviously know about all the bigger brands that are franchises, but I didn't realize a lot of them are franchises. I'm talking about the bigger restaurants and chains.
Yeah.
Um, so I hadn't really matched the two together. Whereas now, I just think everyone should be doing it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's true. 18 years ago, because I remember that's when I kind of starting, if you like, on getting involved in franchising and having my first real job. And that was really pre-internet. I mean, the internet was there, but it wasn't really there at that time. And so it wasn't something that you found or could find much information about very easily. And that meant that the normal person on the street, it was the same for them. They didn't really understand what franchising was. McDonald's was there and they knew that was a franchise. There were film franchises. People, there were sports franchises in the US. Like, people understood, they heard the word franchise in that sense, but they never really related to it. And so it's definitely only been probably in the last 15 years that's that's been growing in people's understanding, but there's still such a long way to go. And just what I wanted to ask you is, how do you how do you build into your overall model? So I'm not talking about an offering to the franchisee, but overall, what you offer to women generally about business. How do you build into that a kind of a knowledge segment about franchising as a way to start your own business, or franchising as a way to maybe expand a business they already have, or maybe they've started and they've been running? And how are you, do you know what I mean? How are you kind of talking about that now as part of that
Well,
education process?
I can talk about my own experience in setting up a franchise, and as we just discussed, with income streams and how a franchisee can make money from this model, but also have women have the opportunity. But I always say the best promotion for a franchise is actually to speak to a franchisee who's taken on the model that I've created, and they can discuss directly with them how they've actually found it. So what we've been doing is having opportunity calls with people. So I'm obviously the franchisor, and somebody else will come on as the franchisee, and they talk openly about how well it's worked for them, because that's the best testament, I think, to a franchise, is because they've looked at all the models and they've looked at all the ops manuals and had conversations with me. And if they can make it work, that gives me the confidence then that I'm doing something right. And so far, fingers crossed, everything's worked.
Great. All right. Okay. Thanks, Lynn. Well, we're coming to an end, so I'd just like to say, thanks so much for giving your time, and I really appreciate what you're doing, because it helps franchising in general. The more women that understand, can become involved, can help other women. I think it's honestly it's good for business, and long may it continue. And I know the BFA are doing a lot around that as well. There's more and more organizations now that are um, taking more control at bringing women into business. And the more that happens, the more it will happen. So, and as I say, it's good for everyone. So thanks
Yeah.
so much. And I
No,
mean, if you've got, sorry, Lynn, what? Yeah, go on.
no, I appreciate the conversation today, because I think it is, as you say, it's very important to highlight this as a instead of actually going, if you have a little bit of funding behind you, to maybe look at a franchise as an opportunity, as a safe opportunity, as opposed to maybe just trying to start a brand from scratch, and just have a look at all the different franchising companies out there. That's something that might fit and work with you.
Just before we go, actually, um, if someone's interested in becoming a franchisee with you, where's their best starting point? Is there a website, or like, feel free to give the address, or be good to direct people somewhere they can go.
Yep, so it's just the Business Women Connections website. So it's all one word, as in big long word, businesswomenconnections.co.uk. All the information's there. Hopefully we've covered all the questions that most people ask us, and there's a form that you can actually fill in and just send that as an opportunity form or an interested form, and then we'll set up a call, whether depending on what part of the country, we can set up a call and then hopefully have a meeting after that, just to see if we're the right fit, and go through all the nitty gritty chat, and just to see what happens, because we've had quite a few applications, but it really has to be the right person. And you kind of know the right person that would be able to work this as a franchise now. As I say, we're going back to all the different personas, but it's all about community, and it's all about that person at localized level and how they work they've got their own contacts in their own cities.
Right. And for people that want to become part of the community, women obviously is mainly, where's the best place for them to go? Like, to become part of the community in general?
Well, if they look onto the same website, there's the map of the UK, and if you're in Scotland at the moment, either you're based in Glasgow, Edinburgh, or Aberdeen, you just click on the map, and that will take you to that franchisee's website, and you can then join their localised community. If you just want to sign up for a Business Women Connections newsletter, there's an opportunity there as well. And again, if you just are interested in talking about a franchise in your area, then I'm happy to have a conversation too. But it's all under the one businesswomenconnections.co.uk. That's the opportunity website.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Lynn, for that. And all right. Well, I'll let you go. And it's been great chatting to you. And I'm sure we will speak again in the future.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. But thank you very much for the opportunity today. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Lynn. Thanks. Bye.